have been using margin to invest for 10 months now, and I use it to amplify my returns. However, there is no free lunch, and this strategy comes with greater risks. If this is your first time hearing about margin, stop this video. This video is not for you. But for the folks who know, what I want to talk about today is how I use margin on Wealthsimple to amplify my expected returns. I will be sharing all my numbers here, so stay tuned for that. But before I do that, I want to share my thought process. This idea is based on life cycle investing. Essentially, the idea is that in your 20s or 30s, you have more human capital than financial capital, right? And so in the early days, you have tons of your working life ahead of you. But at the same time, you don't have as much financial capabilities since you're early in your career, right? Your salary isn't as high as it could be. However, as you get older, the opposite is true. Your human capital decreases in your 50s and 60s, but you have more financial security. So the idea behind life cycle investing is to borrow against your human capital today to stretch that financial capital further. The way I stretch my financial capital now is to borrow using my margin account. So for every dollar that I invest using my 9-to-5 job, I borrow 30 cents from my brokerage. Margin is a loan that has interest. Wealthsimple charges about 2.2%. I invest every dollar in VEQT, and VEQT has a return for the past 10 years now of 14%. So if done right, you can earn that 10% spread on that leveraged amount. One way I try to reduce my risk is by not being margin called. The margin requirement for VEQT is 30%. So what does that mean exactly? Let's say you have $100. And like I said before, I leverage my portfolio by 30%. So in my case, I would have borrowed $30 for my brokerage. So in total, this gives me $130 of buying power. So the blue bar is the $100 that you have from your 9-to-5 job. The $30 on top is the money that you borrow from Wealthsimple. So imagine tomorrow that the market drops by 50%. Will you be margin called? So let's go through the calculation, right? 50% drop, your now portfolio size is 65%. The first $30, right? The money that you borrowed from Wealthsimple always goes first, right? Wealthsimple would always want the $30 back. So the remaining amount is your portion of the portfolio, right? And so that should not fall under 30% because that is the margin requirement for VEQT. So what is your portion of the portfolio? That's an easy calculation, right? It's just 35 divided by 65. So you still have 50%, more than 50% equity in this position. So you will not be margin called. So you are safe. However, let's assume that instead of dropping 50%, it drops a whopping 70%. Now will you be margin called? Let's do the math. So a 70% drop would drop your total portfolio size to $39. And like previously mentioned, the first $30 that you borrowed from Wealthsimple always goes first, right? And the remaining is your share of the portfolio. So it turns out that you only have $9. Well, you only have 23% remaining. This is below the margin requirement threshold. And so you will be margin called, and Wealthsimple will potentially sell your position unless you deposit more money. And that is the situation that I want to avoid. But do I really want to avoid it? Let's think about this for a minute. right? So I leverage my portfolio 1.3x, right? And to be margin called, my portfolio has to fall by roughly 70%, right? Which means that VEQT, which tracks the entire world stock market, has to fall by 70%. That could be possible, but I think it's very unlikely for it to happen. And so that's why I am comfortable leveraging my position by 30%. And so far, this strategy has worked very well for me. Let's jump and actually look at my portfolio. So you can see that my year-to-date return is about 23%, right? So it has worked exceptionally well for me. If you kind of double click into my margin details, you can see that I have borrowed approximately 170K. My total portfolio value is 688K, right? And my margin requirement is around 200K. So you can see that my portfolio size, my total portfolio has to drop by around 70% for me to be margin called, right? And since all of my investments are in VEQT, like I said, I think that is unlikely for it to happen. And so I think it is relatively safe for me not to be margin called, right? It's not impossible, but I am okay with that risk. And since I'm a generation user, you can see that my interest rate is 4.2%, right? Last month I was charged about $500 worth of interest, right? And so this is something I don't pay every month, right? That $500 automatically gets added to the margin balance, right? So I don't have to sell anything, right? Every month that $500 gets added to the margin used balance. Another strategy that I use to automate this is that Wealthsimple has this feature of automatically investing on margin, right? Right. And so what I generally do is that I set an automatic buy order for VEQT every month. So let's just say it's $1,000, right? And it automatically borrows on margin to buy that VEQT position, right? And so every 2 or 3 months, I transferred money from my checking account to my margin account to maintain that 30% leverage limit that I mentioned, right? And so imagine every month it automatically invests $1,000. Every 3 months, I might transfer in $2,000, right? To make sure that I do not go over my 30% leverage limit, right? And so I like that about Wealthsimple. Right? I like my investments being automated, and I like that I can automatically buy on margin. Another thing to mention is that most of that interest that I'm paying can be written off at your marginal tax rate. I have never done this before, right? And so next year will be my first year of doing that. And so if you are in a high marginal tax rate, right, the lower your net interest rate is. And so that could be a huge advantage for you. So yeah, that's my entire margin strategy. I really hope you guys learned something. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment down below. And yeah, that's it. And I'll see you guys next time.